Your friend, my friend, and the world friend is here. The smartest, one of the smartest white men on this side of heaven, Bill Lockwood. He's the host of Patriotic Pulpit and Bible Studies with Bill Lockwood. He's a preacher at Our Park Church of Christ in Texas. And he's here the end of every month. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Jesse. How are you today?
All is well. How you?
I'm doing great. I'm great to be here. Great to be with you and see you again.
Thank you, man. Nice shirt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. That's right. Thank you for that. I thought I'd try to make a splash here.
And you did. So, I want to talk to you about so many things. But first, I want to ask you about how you see things that are happening in the United States right now and the world, but how things looking to you with the Iran thing and the gas prices that the people complain about, all that. How are things looking to you?
I'm concerned. I'm concerned that instead of America first, we've put Israel first. And I am concerned that Donald Trump has shot himself in the foot on going to war. I am not in favor of it. I am not favorable to it. I think that we have done exactly what we have said we would not do, or that conservatives have actually decried, and that is that we continue to be the policemen of the world, bought for by American tax dollars and American blood. I'm not saying, I would like to her to say this and add this. I'm not saying that I do not support our troops and I don't support our military. I do. I support our military and I support our troops just as like I did when we were in Vietnam or any other war. However, I'm concerned about the policies that continue to put them in places in order to police the world. And I'm not so favorable to that. So what's happening in our country is the gas prices have risen, and I think Donald Trump, in my opinion, is trying to get out of it at this particular point simply because he knows at the midterms, if we have gas prices as they are now, that has not been a betterment for our own economy. So I think this is a mistake. I don't think this is a good move to go to Iran and go to war.
When in your opening statement, did you say America is being controlled by Israel?
Well, I'm asking not necessarily controlled by Israel, but is it America first or is it Israel
Oh
first?
yeah. Why do you? What does that mean? And what is the proof that that kind of question would come up? What made you think that way?
Well, number one, is Iran or any of those Middle Eastern countries, are they threatening right now the United States? Well, they may be, but what is the existential threat? Is it existential threat to the homeland of the United States, or is it an existential threat to Israel? And I'm going to say that it's an existential threat to Israel first in the Mideast. Jesse, we have been bogged down in the Middle East since the time of FDR and the creation of the United Nations under Harry Truman. We've been bogged down in the Middle East all of those decades, primarily to defend Israel. And that was I question that entire strategy, and I don't believe that maybe we should be doing that.
There is proof that President Trump had this concern about Iran even before he was considering becoming president. We show interviews of him saying that we need to deal with them before they attack us. Uh, it's impossible that he realized way back then, that Iran was a problem, and that we should not wait until they build a nuclear bomb and attack us. Could that be real?
I don't deny that that is real. I don't deny that the intelligence on that is accurate. But I'm simply asking the question, what made it so that the United States, with our money and our blood, have become the policemen of the world? So China, are they a nuclear country at this point? Well, I believe that they are. So they have been threatening, they've been threatening Taiwan. Are we going to go to China and knock them in the head because they're threatening the free country of Taiwan? They have occupied other nations. I just question this. Okay, so these guys are acting bad over here, and we're going to go over there and we're gonna knock them in the head. That's number one. Number two, what is it, or how is it that we're going to replace, or what will be replacing in Iran, a Muslim country? What is going to replace the Ayatollah? Just another mini Ayatollah. And we don't have anything lined up. And they say, well, it's not nation building. We're not nation building. Well, what are they going to replace it with over there? Number three, the very reason that Iran has become our inveterate enemy is because of United States intermeddling in foreign policy with our foreign policy under Jimmy Carter, and we kicked out the Shah like as one writer put it, as a dead mouse, and we helped install the Ayatollah. So I go back and think, okay, and you hear every day on the news, you hear, okay, for 47 years they've been in trouble. Well, why have they been in trouble? We kicked out the Shah. We helped undercut him, and we actually placed into position the Ayatollah. That's how that happened. So it was our intermeddling in these countries that have created some of the chaos to begin with. So I just question now what's the big picture here? And I am not favorable to it.
Do you trust that Donald Trump knows what he's doing, or not?
I trust Donald Trump. I do, and I still support Trump. But I think that he has been taken by the globalists. And of course, he was accused of being an isolationist, which I don't believe that's a correct term. I believe it's a non-interventionist. But he's showing himself he's not a non-interventionist. We have intervened in foreign countries again. We're intervening elsewhere. And we are depleting, in my estimation, the military capability of America by, okay, so we're going to war in Iran. Now they're sending troops over there. This seems to be a never-ending story, and I am concerned about it. I'm not saying that Donald Trump doesn't have more inside information, and he might have a lot better view of things than I'm able to predict right here, and that may be true. But I just see the big picture that we have continued to intermeddle and interfere in foreign countries under the idea that we have always, well, they're threatening us, and they might get a nuclear weapon, and they might do this, and they might do that. Well, we might as well be at war always then. I don't know. When do we not go to war?
If Donald Trump were to get this thing over with, and the oil starts flowing, and he bring the boys home within the next, I guess, week or so, would that change your opinion? Would that say, yeah, he was right? Or would you still say we shouldn't have gone over there?
I say he's going to be doing that anyway. He's going to do that because he knows the Republicans are going to get kicked in the seat of the pants in the midterms if we don't get our economy under control. And our economy is going out of control, spinning out of control because of foreign wars. So I'm not sure that, okay, that was a right move to begin with. I'm not sure that that's the case. And I will rejoice with everybody that Donald Trump, and I will rejoice that, okay, we bring the troops home, everything turns out good. Oil prices have begun to deplete and go down, and we're doing great. I'm going to rejoice in that also. But I am always going to have in my mind a question: why did we go over there to begin with? Okay. Why are we doing this? So it's peculiar to me that the Democrats have promised to go over with troops to foreign nations continually, and the Republicans and the conservatives have said, why are we doing this? We are not the global cop. Is that what we signed up for? And here's another thing. Just thinking about the Constitution, are we following the Constitution here? Now, not to say that we would have a declaration of war from the Congress that we have now, for they're so widely split. But are we following the Constitution? Are we able to go to war, make war, destroy a country, take down the regime, and it's all police action and not to be considered? As our founding father said, you have to have a declaration of war from Congress to do it. So I've heard many commentators on television say, well, we didn't do it in Vietnam, we didn't do it in Korea, we didn't do it in Iraq, we didn't do it in Somalia. That's true. We have not done that, but those were all Democrat-led and some of them Republican-led wars. But I would argue just because we neglected the Constitution in those years does not justify that we neglect the Constitution today.
What should, again, I'm learning to hear more about our relationship, American relationship with Israel now than I ever heard before. Excuse me. I've always, growing up, I was taught that, or I heard the adults say that Israel is our greatest ally in that area growing up, and that America and Israel were allies, and they were together, and that if it wasn't for Judaism, there would be no Christianity. So like Judaism and Christianity are like brothers. First, before I ask you about the religious part, what should American relationship be with Israel? And back in the good old days, were the people wrong about Israel being our ally in that area?
Well, there's a lot in that question, multi-part question, multifaceted. So let's just break it down a couple of things. So number one, I do believe that Israel is our friend. I don't deny that Israel is our friend and that they should be our friend. Number two, once again, I question, should we, with our foreign aid, with money from the American taxpayer pocketbook, should we, with foreign aid, support Israel? Well, the Constitution does not allow it. Foreign aid is not allowed in the Constitution. So let's say that, okay, well, they're our friends. Okay, let's send them money. Okay, so then you get another president in there and say, you know what? We want to send money over here to Somalia. Okay, well, now what's the argument? The argument is, well, we need to help them, but we've already jumped out of the arena. We've already broken down the gates, because the gates say no foreign aid. We don't have any constitutional authority to send money to another country. So now we're doing that. So another president or a Democratic regime gets into Washington, D.C., and they say, okay, we're going to send money over here to such and such country, or we're going to send it over here to a South American country. Well, what are we going to say about it? Are we going to say, well, that's not constitutional? Well, we can't say that anymore. We're going to have to say, well, why are you doing that? And is that a wise move? And Israel's our friend, and these are not our friends. So now we have left the Constitution, and we are just wallowing around talking about who's our friend and not our friend. So all of that, I'm going to say, yes, Jesse, I believe that Israel's our friend, and I don't deny that, and I hope to go there one day. But at the same time, I'm not certain that American blood should be spilt and American money should be paid to Israel for anything as foreign aid. I just question that, constitutionally speaking.
So I hear you saying that, yes, we should be friends with Israel, but don't give them any money.
Right. Right.
What made America, why did we start giving them money in the beginning?
Well, let me just say this. My next door neighbors may need some money. I want to be friends with them, but that doesn't mean in order to be my friend, I'm going to give them my money.
Right.
It's just
yeah.
So we started this, however, this foreign aid under the socialistic style regimes of the FDRs of the world, and we started this foreign aid. We started the foreign aid, for example, when the international banks were established under FDR's regime. That would be in the World War II period. The United Nations wanted us to be, and FDR, even back to Woodrow Wilson, they wanted us to be a global government, a global system. And when they set up the League of Nations during World War I period, and Woodrow Wilson wanted us to get into it so badly, Many members of the Congress at that time had enough backbone to say, this is unconstitutional. It is going to trump, it is going to override the sovereignty of the United States. And so we're not going to be part of it. They went back to the drawing board, and then we have World War II. Then we have FDR. He set up the United Nations. And the idea was not only would it be an international body to oversee and override our decision making in America, in many instances at least, but also they would set up international banks, such as the International Monetary Fund and World Bank and so forth. They set up these international banks. So we contribute, and Trump has been right all the time on this. He said, we contribute so many billions of dollars to these banks. Then third world countries borrow that money, and then they default on the loan, and then the American taxpayer picks up the tab. That is wrong. So why have they done this? Because in the FDR administration, some of the staff members were saying in the White House saying, we don't want the idea that America is first and that everybody has to do their own thing. We want to drain the American taxpayer of our money, and so they do it through this pea and shell game, sending it over to international banks, and then they borrow it, and then we are stuck with the tab. Then it got so bad that in the time of John F. Kennedy in the 1960s, he set up also another system by which we would simply send it over direct aid just so quickly to foreign nations. And that's the one that the Republicans have pointed out that the Democrats have been raiding forever and ever. We just can't give away our money fast enough. And that's what's happening because the globalist internationalists have controlled our country and the direction of our policies for too long.
Amazing. So before all that happened, we were friends with Israel without giving them money. We were just friends, right? Before all that went down.
Well, correct.
Okay.
So, but Israel was not established until 1948. But it was actually a British mandate at the end of World War I, where Great Britain had a mandate, and that mandate was in order that it would be a British-controlled territory. And so the armies of Colonel Allenby marched into Jerusalem, put up the Union Jack, and so that's how that all happened. And so that British mandate, but they got tired of trying to take care of it because of all the unrest that was there. They came in and they pushed the Palestinians aside and said, "Hey, this is Jewish land. We're going to repatriate Jews to Israel." And so then finally, when the British said, we're tired of it, they walked out. The United Nations took over. They established the Jewish state, 1948. And so the rest is history.
Amazing. So one last thing about that. So should we just stop right now giving Israel or any country money? Should we just stop?
Well, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
I believe so. But I'm going to say this. I remember Ron Paul saying that you cannot, since you have a welfare system, he was talking about in the country.
Right.
In our country, he says, since you have a welfare system in which we have so many people reliant 100% on the government, you can't just cut it off, boom. You have to deplete it and slowly bring it out. That may be the case with foreign nations because now we have created a welfare system on your back and on my back where not only are we redistributing your hard-earned money to people in this country unconstitutionally, but we're doing it to foreign nations also. Now they're reliant on us.
Okay.
So it may be people who are wiser than I on foreign policy say we need to just deplete it or tone it down, that is, step it down over a period of time. But I don't believe that it's constitutional to begin with.
Should do other countries, including Israel, are there other countries that give America money?
That give America money?
Yes.
Not to my knowledge.
Nobody give us money?
Why would they give us money? We are the ones who give everybody money. Why would they give us money?
But no, I don't know. I mean, it just looked like it seemed as though if we were giving other countries money in time of need, quote unquote, are there ever time of need when they need to give us money too, or do we just have all the money we never need anyone else to give us money?
Well, we don't have all the money we need. We're way, 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 way in the hole with 35 billion, trillion rather, in debt. And that's why Donald Trump says we're going to have tariffs. But who has been opposing that? The Democrats and all the neocon Republicans. He said we've got to go back to the tariff system so that American taxpayer are not shouldered with all of this debt. We cannot even service the debt. We're paying more on the interest on the money that we have borrowed from the banks then we're paying more interest than we have even funding the military.
That's amazing.
It's crazy. Well, I wonder if any foreign country will take off and service that debt for us. No, they won't because we're the dupes. We're the dupes,
but
not them.
I think that's so amazing that America is so rich and powerful that we give money to other countries, but no country give us money or any kind of help at all. Isn't that like amazing?
It is amazing. And the thing regarding, for example, just go back to where Biden and Kamala Harris said, Kamala Harris went down to Central America, said, you know what, you got so many problems here. And here's how we're going to resolve the problem. We're going to pour you billions of dollars. We're going to give you money right here. You know what? If you go to the slums in any big city and say we're going to solve the problem, do you think that we're going to solve the problem by funneling more money?
Nope.
No.
For sure, no.
It doesn't. That doesn't solve the problem.
Right. So before we take this first break, it was reported that Obama gave a truckload of money to Iran.
Right. Right.
Should he have done that?
Oh no, no.
Why did he do it?
Because he's weak and he loves Islam. He was weak as a president, and I believe that he was traitorous in giving that money to them. They have been our enemies. They threatened us and Israel. Why give them money?
Yeah.
Send them a plane load of money. That's ridiculous. And the American taxpayers are the ones who are suffering for it because what happens is then our dollar is devalued. The more money we print, the more our dollar is devalued. And so we're suffering for it. So all of our prices rise in response to it. But that's because we've just print the money.
That's amazing. Judaism and Christianity, are we brothers?
Well, no, we're not.
But isn't it true that Christianity was brought in by Christ? I think we would call something else before Christianity. He dealt with the Jews. He established the Judaism religion. And then, what do those people call? Gentile. And so he like,
oh, yeah.
he like,
you're talking about me, and you,
right? He like the poor Gentile. They need Jesus too, and so he brought in the Gentile, and so as a result of Judaism, there is Christianity because we were brought into it. When I come back, I want you to respond to that.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right, 888-77-JESSE. Quick break, back in a moment. Okay, welcome back. 888-77-53773. 888-77-JESSE. Bill Lockwood is here. And Bill, before we get back into the discussion, tell the folks how they can help you, where they should go, and your website and everything.
Well, thank you for that, Jesse. So the sermons that I preach, and I'm preaching right now, matter of fact, on Zionism, which I call Zionism forcing God's hand, that is a critique of Zionism. But they can be found on Bible Studies with Bill Lockwood on YouTube. And then I also have, of course, the podcast that I do, which is Patriotic Pulpit. To help me, there's a coffee account associated with it. I think James Hake's going to have to tell me what it is again.
It looks like ko-fi.com
/ Patriotic Pulpit.
Yeah, there we go.
Repeat it. The whole
It's
thing.
ko-fi, that is ko-fi.com / Patriotic Pulpit.
Amazing.
There we go.
And
Thank you for that.
I want to encourage the people
Of
really
course.
to go there and help you. So what Nick?
I said, of course. You said thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you're right. I have to rely on James for thinking too. He white. So Bill,
Yes, sir.
tell me about. So if it wasn't for Judaism, there would be no Christianity. Am I wrong? Right? I was taught that growing up, and I remember reading the Bible in church and stuff like that, and they would point that out. I'm surprised you haven't gone to Israel. You have not lived until you go to Israel.
Well, it would be a great experience. I have a lot of friends who have gone, but every time
Yeah.
I plan to go, there's bombs going off. So I think, well, maybe not a good time.
Right. So if there were no Judaism, would that be Christianity? And are we brothers? Judaism and Christianity, are we brothers?
Okay, so the first answer to the answer to the last part of it is no. The first part of that is brothers, no. But we'll talk about why that's the case in the second part of the answer here. Regarding Judaism and Christianity, the Old Testament set up the law of the Israelites, and it was always designed to be a type, to be a preparation for Jesus Christ. It was always designed as one giant arrow coming to Jesus Christ. It was designed to be preparatory for Jesus Christ and the new covenant. That's what it was designed to do. Just as a prophecy is no longer a prophecy after it's fulfilled, it is fulfilled and it is completed. So also Judaism itself was in itself a prophetic institution that was set up in order to bring us to Christ. But now that Christ has come, we have no longer need. And I'm actually quoting here Hebrews chapter 8 through chapter 10. He says, now that Christ has come, we have no longer need of the Old Testament. So it was designed to bring us to Jesus Christ.
Right.
This is also exactly what Galatians chapter 4 teaches. He tells us very plainly in Galatians chapter 4 that, you know, and he gives the illustration of a child. When the child is not of age, then he is kept under tutors until the time that is appointed by the father. But now that we've come of age, we have no longer need of a tutor. Galatians chapter 3 tells us the Old Testament was a tutor to bring us to Christ. Galatians 3:24 and following. It was a tutoring system to bring us to Jesus Christ. So it was designed to leave. So just like a school bus takes the children to the school, but the school bus is no longer needed when the children are already at the school. That is, of course, we're not talking about taking them home, but when they
Right.
bring them to the schoolhouse, the school bus is taken away. That's exactly what the Old Testament, as Paul describes it in Galatians 3, the design of the Old Testament was to bring us to Jesus Christ. But now that Christ has come, we are no longer under the tutor. And that's exactly his wording in Galatians 3. So that is what Judaism was to be. Number two, regarding Judaism today, it is not the Judaism of the Old Testament. The Judaism today is Pharisaism, and the Pharisaism that actually was responsible for putting Christ on the cross. Anybody can read that in the Talmud today. The Talmud today has so many wicked statements made regarding Jesus Christ, telling us that he died on an animal heap like a beast, that he was the illegitimate son of a Roman soldier by the name of Panthera. It tells us that his apostles were also illegitimate individuals. It tells us that he went down to Egypt to learn magic and that he was a false prophet. The entire Talmud is filled with Jewish and Christian, or rather with Christ and Christian hatred. Christians also are people who, in the Talmud says you should not do business with. And if they even have a kol nidre vow, which is to say, if you take a vow at the first of the year with a Gentile such as you, Jesse, then that vow can be null and void if you have that in your mind, that if you say, oh, I'm not going to keep my vow to this Gentile, you don't have to keep the vow because you're a Gentile. You're not a Jew. This is all Judaism, or rather should say Pharisaism, and it is exactly what our Lord opposed in Mark 7, verses 1 through 15, where he said that you void the word of God by your tradition. And that's what Judaism is. It's Talmudism, which is the same as Pharisaism, which was encoded. It was an oral law at the time of our Lord, but it was encoded in the Talmud in the 2nd century after our Lord. But it is filled with blasphemous statements of Jesus Christ, blasphemous statements regarding Christian people, ugly, nasty comments continually. And so I'm always amazed to say, well, Jews and Christians are brothers and sisters. Well, what? They don't look at it that way, and that's not the way it is.
But is it true that even when Christ walked the earth, the problem is that, and still is that the rabbis, I guess, preachers, whatever they were called during Christ's time on earth, they were never for him anyway, right? It was
Correct.
It was the people who saw Christ, they saw Christ for who he was and what he represented. And so it was the people who were following Christ, but the preachers and the rabbis and the teachers of those days, they never liked Christ because he was causing them to become independent and knowing God for themselves and all that. And the rabbis wanted to be worshiped, and so they were deceiving the people by keeping them away from Christ. So they never, is that the reason they wrote this book, the Talmud or whatever? That's why they keep trying to make Christ look bad? Because they didn't want the people to follow Christ anyway.
Well, okay, so when Christ came to the earth, the basic idea of Judaism at the time, which was dominated by Pharisaism, even though Sadducees were the head of the Sanhedrin, Pharisaism was, and the Sadducees believed it also, was that there would be a physical kingdom, that Christ would sit on a literal throne in Palestine on the literal chair of David, and that he would lead them into battle against the Romans and kick them out of Palestine. That's the Jewish belief at the time of our Lord. He taught, and by the way, isn't it amazing that Zionists and premillennialists today hold exactly the same doctrine, which is really a doctrine of infidelity? They hold exactly the same doctrine as the Pharisees did at the time of our Lord, and yet that is so popular in Christian circles. That's absolutely stunning to me. But they believed in a physical kingdom. Any theory, Jesse, that does not take into account the fact that the Lord came not to do a physical kingdom,
right,
but to do spiritual work.
Yeah.
Matthew 1:21, save people from their sins. And that the cross of Jesus was always before him because he was crucified as a lamb slain from the foundation of the world, Revelation 13:8. Any theory that does not take into account those two facts, he came to do spiritual work and he came to die on the cross. Any theory that does not take those two things into account is wrong to begin with, and that is where Zionism is today. They tell us, for example, that Christ came to set up this physical kingdom that the Jews wanted. But somehow they rejected him, and so he pigeonholed his plans. He put them in the place at the side in a mailbox. He said, well, we'll worry about that later. I'll give you the church now instead as an interim measure, and I'll come back later and do what the Old Testament told me I should do when I came to do it the first time, but the Jews rejected me and I couldn't do it. So I'll come back and do it later. That's premillennial dispensational doctrine, and it is infidelity because it takes exactly the same position as Pharisees and says, no, the Lord was wrong to start a spiritual kingdom in the beginning with, and he should have given this physical kingdom, so he had to pigeonhole those plans, and he's going to put it off for a later date. So they say what? Okay, that's what's going to happen later. So their entire program, the Zionist program, is to do exactly that in the future, and that is give us a physical kingdom, a literal chair of David in Jerusalem, in Palestine. And that's what's going on, not only in our country, in the pulpits of Christianity, so-called, but is also one of the things, I think, that drives foreign policy.
Was Jesus a Jew?
Okay, this is a great question. I read several years ago a manuscript by a Jewish rabbi by the name of Benjamin Friedman, 1954. It was written on an old typewriter. It was a 60, 70, maybe 100-page manuscript. And it was written to another rabbi by the name of Goldstein, and he began with this. He said, Jesus was not a Jew. I thought, what in the world? What are you talking about? And I just thought, that sounds so far-fetched. It sounds so crazy. So after a while, I said, I picked it up and read the manuscript. And his thesis was this. He said the Jews today do not trace themselves to the bloodline of Abraham. They're not bloodline Jews from the biblical times. They actually are converts from the kingdoms of Khazaria in the southern steppes of Russia in the 6th century, where King Bulan, who was the Kagan there, the Kagan, or that was the king. His name was Bulan. He hired a number of rabbis of the Pharisees from the old country of Babylonia to come over and teach his people Judaism in order to quell some of the immorality that was going on. So the argument of Benjamin Friedman is this. He says that, and he quotes a score of historians to support it. And that is, the Jews today are not the Jews traceable to the Jews of Jesus's day. They're actually people from the country of Khazarian Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardi Jews, which be from Spain, and they are not bloodline Jews. And those Jews at the time of our Lord were lost to history, as the Old Testament prophets said they would be. Now, not only that, but here's something interesting. After I read Benjamin Friedman's manuscript, there were several others. For example, Shlomo Sand, who is a Jewish rabbi, who also put out a book and says the same thing. And then there was Arthur Kiesler, who wrote a book in the 1970s and said exactly the same thing. It's called the 13th tribe. He said, no, the Jews today, and he's a Jew, he's a Zionist Jew. He said, we are not traceable to the Jews of the Bible. We are traceable only to the kingdom of Khazaria. And that's where our roots lie, not the Jews of the Bible. Then here's something even more interesting. There were two scientists who did DNA research at the University of Tel Aviv. One of them was the University of Tel Aviv, Hebrew University there. Another one here at the Johns Hopkins University, and he did DNA studies. He said, that's right. The Jews today have no Jewish bloodline that is traceable to the Abrahamic Jews. They go back to Khazaria, and that's as far as it goes. They're imposters. They're not Jews of the time of Christ. They're not Jews bloodline traceable to the line of Abraham at all. So here we have an atheist by the name of Christopher Hitchens. He died a few years ago. He was a Jew. And he kind of quipped. He said, after reading some of this material, he said, you know what? I guess he said, to be an anti-Semite, he said, I guess we're just semi-Semites. And I said, that's the end of it. So, but anyway.
What a mess.
So that is one of the big hoaxes of history, in my estimation, regarding the Jews.
So based on that, are you saying that the Jews of Israel are not real Jews?
Correct. They're not Jews of the Bible. They have no claim to the land. They have no claim to Israel today because they're not bloodline Jews.
So where are the real Jews?
They're gone.
Gone where?
Dissipated by the DNA and the mixing races among all the peoples, just as Moses said would occur in Deuteronomy chapter 28, as well as other prophets would state later. They would disappear. They would be mixed among the peoples and lost because they refused to keep the law of God.
So the real Jews exist, it sounds like, but they're just kind of mixed up with everybody, and no one really know who they are, what they are, when we see them. Are you saying they're out there, but no one knows because they're so scattered about?
Well, they're not just one person standing out there that says, "Hey, I'm a bloodline Jew." They're so mixed at this point that there's no one can say, "Okay, I'm a Jew from the time of Abraham." And here's something else interesting: if indeed the Zionists today want to establish, Pete Hegseth even said, we want to have next temple built in Jerusalem. Why build the temple? Why build the temple? The temple was a type of what we have now in Jesus Christ worshiping. Jesus told the best of the Jews, Nicodemus, he said, you can't get into the kingdom of God on Jewishness. You must be born again. John 3:3-5. But Pete Hegseth says, well, we're going to build the temple, or the Jews can build the temple at Mount Moriah again. Why build the temple? And who's going to officiate in it, Jesse? You have to be able to prove that you're of the tribe of Levi and of the family of Aaron in order to serve in the temple. But those records are lost. They were lost from the year 70 A.D. forward. No one can show that they're a Jew or a priest in the Jewish line.
That's amazing. That's a lot. I'm black and slow, and I don't understand internet, but it's interesting.
Yes, you do. Well, I tell you what, it's hard-hitting material, and I tell you, it's hard-hitting, but I know, and people might be all excited. I'm not looking at the thread and what people are saying, but I'm sure people are jumping up and down at this point, talking, what? But you do, they're DNA researchers, you look them up. And this is something that even Christopher Hitchens, who was an atheistic Jew, he knew whereof he spoke on this one particular subject.
So one other quick thing, because I want to ask you about the Zionism thing as well. Does Netanyahu and the Jews of Israel and the ones that are here in America, do they know they're not the real Jews and just pretending not to know, or do they think that they are the real Jews?
You know, I've got that biography of Netanyahu, and I've not read it all, but he does talk about Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews. And I think that his lineage is traceable to Poland, but I don't know specifically whether or not he believes and knows that he's not a bloodline Jew from the time of the Bible. I don't know that be the case, but if not, perhaps he'll watch the podcast and do his own research on it, which I encourage many people to do, as well as all the Zionists, such as the John Hagees of the world, and many different Baptist preachers. You know, they're all over the saying, you know, they give the land to the Jews because it belongs to them. They're not even bloodline Jews, and they lost the land because it was conditional promise to begin with.
So one thing for sure, the blacks are not the real Jews.
That's correct. You know, but you bring up an interesting point, because in Africa, some of the Ethiopians say that they have Jewish blood in them, and that was some of their old traditions.
Yeah.
And the DNA research says, well, that probably is more accurate than even those people who are today living in Israel.
Really?
So there you go.
Yeah, man. And so, yes or no, Bill Lockwood don't believe that Jesus was a Jew.
Well, I'm going to say let's clarify.
Yeah.
Not the Jew that is defined as a Jew today, but in the Jew of that time he was.
Oh, okay.
But a Jew today is redefined, and a Jew today is not the bloodline Jew of Jesus's time. So Jesus was not a Jew in the sense that he was not a Jew in the Pharisaical tradition, which is what Talmudism is today, but he was a Jew in the bloodline of Jesus. And he even told the Jews of that time in John chapter 8, he told them about his own bloodline, and they accused him of being an illegitimate son at that particular point in John 8.
That's amazing. And so the Jesus of that time, what color was he?
I think he probably looked just like the people in the Mideast who are kind of halfway between me and you. I'm guessing that would be the case.
That's amazing.
I don't know, but.
And so, what should the relationship be between the Jews and the Christians?
The relationship between Jews and Christians?
Yes.
The relationship should be that Christians need to preach to the Jews that unless you are born again, you cannot enter into the kingdom of God. How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter into his mother's womb a second time and be born?
Right.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, you must be born anew. You must be born of water and spirit, that is baptized and spiritual birth, water and spirit, or you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. The relationship between Christians and Jews should be that Christians need to evangelize Jews in order to be born again in order to become in the family of God. They are not in the family of God unless they are born again.
That's amazing. Okay. So
where do we go from here?
I know. I don't know what to do. Bill, are you able to take some calls?
Sure, we'll take some calls.
Okay, let me take a break. When I come back, we'll take some calls.
Okay.
And I want to ask you about the Zionism thing as well. 888-7753-773, 888-77 Bill is going to stay over to take some calls, and I want to ask Bill because there's a whole lot of people like, what's up with Bill and Zionism? We're going to talk to him about that. Back in a moment. Hate news, not the fake news coming up right now. Bill Lockwood is here, and he's here every end of every month, and we're holding him over today because it's because he has the time and it's interesting. Bill Lockwood is the host of Patriotic Pulpit and Bible Study with Bill Lockwood. He is a preacher at Our Park Church of Christ. And what is his website, Nick? Say that again.
You can also support him donating via Ko-Fi. That's ko-fi.com/patriotic pulpit.
All right. So Bill, and as y'all all know by now, Bill is one of the smartest white men on this side of heaven. And he's getting smarter and smarter and smarter. Bill, my biblical question for this week: why are women assumed innocent and men are assumed guilty?
Well, that's a good question. But, if you're in a Muslim country and a woman is accused, or a woman accuses a man of rape, she is accounted as the guilty one because her testimony only counts one half of a man. So we've flipped it over here in America, and that is when a woman makes an accusation, whether it's true or not, then we like to accuse the man and consider him guilty until he proves himself innocent. And I don't think that's correct at all. But I guess the why of that is simply because of the culture that we've established, and that is where we put women's rights above common sense so frequently.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I appreciate that. I can't respond to that until Sunday, if the Lord is willing, and the crypto right. Yeah. So, Bill, yes or no? And then because I want to ask you about the Zionist thing, if so Christianity would exist even if Judaism did not exist?
Well, okay, so God set up the Jewish system with the Israelites in the Torah, that is Genesis through Deuteronomy, and He set it up in order to prepare the way for Christianity. It was all in type. It was all in preparation for. It was a shadowy system to prepare people for Christ. Because as Paul tells us in Hebrews chapter 9, the blood of bulls and goats, this is chapter 10 actually, verses 1 through 4, the blood of bulls and goats could never take away sins. It was designed therefore to cause men to say, how can I be saved? And to turn their attention to the blood of the eternal Son, Jesus Christ. So it was designed that way. It was designed to disappear at the time of Christ. But Pharisaism continued on, and Judaism today is Pharisaism. So it was designed to disappear just as the prophecies were to disappear, that does not carry the validity still. So it's just when a prophet, for example, when a prophet gave a prophecy, for example, Micah 5:2, that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem, is that prophecy still carried on? Well, no, the prophecy has been fulfilled. And we can compare the fulfillment of it with the prophetic statement that was made in Micah chapter 5 and verse 2.
So does that mean, yes, Christianity would exist even if there were no Judaism? Christianity would be?
Well, are you saying if there was no Judaism today?
Period.
Well,
I mean, as a result of Judaism, did Christianity come about?
Christianity did come about because God set up the Jewish system, that is Judaism in the Old Testament. That's how it came about. That's correct.
What do you say to the people who are mad at the Jews because they say the Jews killed Jesus, and they mad. What do you say to those people?
Well, number one, I would say, first of all, it is not inaccurate to say that the Jews killed Christ. That's exactly what Paul says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 14 through 16. He said they drove at us, that is, he's talking about the apostles, they drove at us, please not God, they're contrary to all men. And he said they killed Christ. All of these things Paul tells us in 1 Thessalonians 2, 14 through 16. And then he says the wrath will come upon them to the uttermost. However, I would say it is not something that we should carry around to say, I'm mad about it, because I'm thankful that Jesus gave his life. He at the same time gave his life for us. And so that his historical fact 2,000 years ago should not bother me and say I'm angry at anybody today. As we've already pointed out, the Jews today are not traceable to the Jews of the time of our Lord. They are converts from the kingdom of Khazaria. So there's no reason to hold people today responsible for what happened to Jesus in the year 33 AD.
Amazing. And then Nick want to ask you a question about the black thing, to be clear about it. And Hake is coming in to read some of these super chats for you, and we're going to take some calls.
Okay.
Nick, ask him about the black thing.
I don't have a clear question on that, no.
But you said it's...
Oh, yeah, I remember now. You know, doesn't...
all of a sudden he forgot.
You were saying that, if they can only be traced back to the Khazarians.
Correct.
I guess James was saying that, he was asking, then you're saying then the blacks definitely can't be the Jews, but doesn't that also, can you also kind of say they could be with your theory?
Well, first of all, this is well documented by historians, and it's simply been covered up for many, many years, or at least not exposed. There are many historians, Jewish and others, as well as DNA studies, who say that the Jews today are traceable to the kingdom of Khazaria. Whether or not the blacks are Jews or not, I don't think there's really a viable question as far as that is concerned, because the Jewish DNA from the time of Abraham has been dispersed among peoples. And so it is just as well to say that a person in Ethiopia could have some Jewish DNA, as well as a person living in Israel saying, I'm an Orthodox Jew. That's all I'm saying. But it's to say that we're full-blooded Jews. No, they're not any full-blooded Jews from the time of our Lord. Matter of fact,
That clear, Nick?
That makes sense, Nick?
Yeah. Yep.
If I've not been clear, I want to try to clear it
up.
up.
No, it's clear. No, my question is not even that. It's not even good. Let's move on. But appreciate
that
it.
Was not the question.
You got it. Thank you. That made it clear what you were saying.
What do you mean your question wasn't good?
No, it's silly. Let's move on.
But that's not a silly, because when he said that thing about Ethiopia, that did look like the blacks may be the Jews.
No, well...
Why are you doubting yourself, Nick? But go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, Jewish DNA is dispersed. So to say so-and-so are the Jews from the Bible times, that's just a misunderstanding. There's no person today who can say, I'm a Jew and I trace my line back to the time of Abraham. You can't do it. It cannot be done because the DNA has been so dispersed. Just the same as today, people who have Indian cards in America, you might find some people who are full-blooded Indians. That's true. But many people say, well, I've got an Indian card. Well, I'm 1/64th Cherokee Indian. Well, does that make you an Indian? Well, I don't know. I just,
it makes you a half-breed.
Yeah, I bet be one. That's right, or a 1/64th breed. I don't know, but that's the deal that has been dispersed and disseminated among the peoples in the DNA.
Amazing. Hake has a question for you.
Okay,
we wouldn't recognize Abraham's DNA if we saw it, right? Or no? We don't even know what it is.
So you know what? I'm not certain about that. I will say this: that here's how This is Dr. and I mentioned a couple of them. Here's Dr. Aaron Ilhak, who was the Israeli-born Jewish researcher, Johns Hopkins Medical University in Baltimore, Maryland, and he was confirming what Dr. Oriella Oppenheim, who in Tel Aviv in 2001, her finding was the Jews are not descendants of Abraham. In fact, they're Turkish and Mongol stock. So it doesn't matter whether you can recognize Abraham's DNA or not. They're saying it's Turkish and Mongol stock, which is definitely not Abrahamic or not Jewish. So here's Dr. Aaron Ilhak. He says that the DNA studies today, they're traceable once again, he says, and this is DNA, to Khazaria. So whether or not you can identify Abraham's DNA over here is beside the point. The point is that the DNA that the Jews possess today is traceable only to Khazaria, which has no connection with Abraham's stock.
That makes sense. Hey,
Yep. I have some super chats for
okay.
Bill.
I do, but hold
Okay.
that for a minute.
Okay.
Bill,
right.
because of time, I want to just understand this. You talk about, you've been teaching about Zionism.
Correct.
And so as a result, I'm told that that's trending. What is the definition of Zionism?
So as I thought I gave it out. If I didn't, I meant to give it out earlier, and I apologize for that. So Zionism is a nationalistic colonial movement for the reestablishment of Israel in the borders of Israel, of people who are of Jews today in the Israelite territory, and to establish their borders and to maintain their sovereignty over the land. And the question has been, of course, how much of the land is theirs and so forth. But that's what it is. It is a nationalistic, colonial-style movement in order to create the Jews in that land and create national sovereignty borders. That's Zionism.
Oh, okay. And which well-known politician identifies as Zionist?
Well,
And
Ronald
then-
Reagan did, for one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Ronald Reagan did. And also Jimmy Carter was himself a Zionist. Jimmy Carter was. Ronald Reagan apparently was. I mean, so a lot of materials I've read, it seems to be that that's what he believed was the case. So there are a lot of politicians who believe that to be the case. And so the United Nations established that country in 1948. And it was not, as Pete Hegseth says, a miracle. It was actually a mandate from the United Nations, which was controlled by, and they had the Security Council, which consisted of not only the United States and Great Britain, but consisted of China and at that time the Soviet Union. And they had one other country upon it, which I've forgotten what it is. So those are the ones who established it.
What? So we have some super chats for you and then some calls. Yeah,
Okay.
Hake is here. Okay, Hake.
All right. Over on pill.net, Pastor Chatelet
Show
asks.
Hake. How come they don't show Hake?
Oh, he will. He's kind of working it out.
Oh, okay.
Does Bill think that Christ already came back asking for a friend? Says Chatelet.
You know what? The Lord in the New Testament promises that he will come back in the future. So Acts chapter 1, verses 9 through 11, he shall so come as you saw him going into heaven. Jesus came back, figuratively speaking, in the destruction of Jerusalem, Matthew chapter 24. But he came back, that is, the Lord returned also in many different episodes of history, and that figuratively speaking, he returned. But the Lord has not yet returned. The second and final coming of the Lord is still future. So 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, Acts chapter 1, verses 9 through 11, all of these passages and more also are still to be fulfilled in the future. But that does not preclude that there is a coming of the Lord, or there were comings of God in the destructive armies of Jerusalem, figuratively speaking, when Rome was destroyed in the year 70 AD, as taught in Matthew chapter 24.
Amazing. Thank you, Pastor Chatelet.
Cheddar Bob. Hey, Bill, the military grants that Israel receives circulates back into the American economy. Wouldn't that suggest that America has more of a control over Israel?
Now, how does that work again? The money that
we
Go
grant to Israel, according to Cheddar Bob, circulates back into the American economy?
All right. You know what? That circulates back. All of it circulates back. They give it back. Number one, it's still unconstitutional. You might argue all day long that 100% of the money that we give away circulates back into our economy. Oh, okay. So we don't need constitutional authority to give money away. What are we talking about here? That has nothing to do with the Constitution. And that also is, I think that would be hard to quantify, wouldn't it? You could say, okay, some of it circulates back, all of it circulates back, whatever. I don't know. But the question is, has the American Congress been given the authority by the Constitution to give away American tax dollars to foreign nations? The answer is no.
Thank you. Who was that?
Cheddar Bob.
Cheddar Bob.
Bulgar Wolf.
Cheddar Bob.
Bulgar
Okay.
Wolf. Hey, ask Bill what he thinks of the Jews creating the Federal Reserve in the USA and creating communism and Bolshevism to take down Russia, Germany, Bulgaria, and the whole of Europe.
All right, so this is a big issue to talk about, but people such as Theodore Herzl, who was one of those Zionists at the beginning, was an atheist himself. So also was Vladimir Lenin. He was a Jew. So also were other Zionist leaders, Russian communist leaders. They were absolutely Jewish in their stock. That is, when we're speaking about Jews, we're talking about the Khazarian Jews. They were Jews, Ashkenazi Jews. So Vladimir Lenin, Leon Trotsky, Karl Marx, all of those people were communists, but they were Jews. So they did have designs on America and the free world in order to take the free world for communism. And so they are indeed Jewish stock. And many people don't recognize that to be the case, but many of those Russian leaders, the Soviet leaders at the beginning and communist leaders, most all of them were Jews, and that's the ones who were in control of the Bolshevik Revolution. So also they exported communism to foreign nations, whether it be Bulgaria, Romania, so forth. They exported communism all over the world.
Because we have calls for you, Bill, and super chats, you're going to have to answer a little faster.
Okay, I'll go.
It's a little shorter.
All right, super chat.
Super chat, yeah.
All right.
Any morning, Bill, Trump announced the USA will be reimbursed for the cost of this military operation, $200 billion, via Iran oil. What do you say to that?
Who is that from?
And heat.
In heat, okay.
I say that's great. I hope that we are. If that holds up, I think that's great that we are. I still question the wisdom of fighting wars. We've been at war ever since I've been alive. We're still at war technically with North Korea. We simply have a temporary truce. Are we going to be at war continually? That's the issue. I am happy that we'll be reimbursed, and I appreciate Trump doing that. And I appreciate Trump on all those kind of issues. Okay, I'm trying to be quick here.
Bulgar Wolf. Hey, ask Bill if he's heard of this particular Russian mathematician who had discoveries on the origins of Jesus and Christianity. And I can't say the guy's name.
You can't say his name?
Right.
Is it disallowed, or you can't pronounce it, or what is it?
Disallowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass
Okay.
that along.
You
Okay,
pass it along to you can respond on your show.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. But the goal today for many people in Judaism is to denigrate Jesus Christ and to tell us that he was not who he said he was. So I'm going to take that with a grain of salt, no matter, how that comes with, because that's very common stock anymore.
Let me ask you two quick questions, Bill, that people have asked me to ask you about.
Okay.
So the Bible, Jews are described in the Bible as God-chosen people.
Correct.
And so is that true?
It was true.
Okay.
And God chose them in the Old Testament, but God chooses Christians today. Listen to what Paul has to say. What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering vessels of wrath, fitted for destruction? This is the Jews. that he might make known the riches of his glory upon vessels of mercy, which he afore prepared unto glory, even us, whom he called not from the Jews only, but also from the Gentiles. As he said in Hosea, I will call that my people who are not my people, and her beloved that was not beloved. And in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there shall they be called the sons of the living God. That is to say, Christians are my people, from Jews and Gentiles. So Jews were God's people in the Old Testament, but today Christians are. And that's Paul's statement in Romans 9:23 through 28.
And what would you say to people who give, what advice would you give to young people who opposes Zionism?
Well, I would give advice, number one, to study the Bible and not fall in the track of the Zionists, because they need to understand what is actually taking place. And I would encourage them to read widely, read things that you disagree with, read things that you agree with, but read the Old Testament prophets and what they had to say, and not simply through the eyes or the lens of a Zionist. That would be one thing I would say.
If the Jews are scattered about everywhere and we're not sure who they are, why do people think that the Jews control everything in America?
Well, because the Jews today are from the kingdom of Khazariah, but so there are Jews today, and I don't deny that, but they're not traceable to the bloodline Jews of the Bible. But the Jews today seemingly do control very much the banking systems and so forth. I understand that, okay, many Jews are in control of those different things, but it's not talking about the Jews of the Bible, biblical Jews, talking about Khazarian, Ashkenazi Jews. And they are seemingly controlling a lot of things. And I think that's, of course, that's a viable concern.
Does Benjamin Netanyahu control Donald Trump?
I hope not. I hope not.
You have more super chat?
Yeah, a couple more.
And then I'll take some calls.
Fazul, thanks, Bill. Where can I get that cool shirt?
I know, that's a nice shirt,
I think I'll have to look at my tag. I don't know where I got this one. My wife bought it somewhere, but it's she may have bought it online for me. I'm not sure where. I go to the Western shops, and some of the Western shops have this particular pattern in it. So maybe that's, that's
Right on.
And Star of the Sea, Bill is confused in spreading proven lies. This is Star of the Sea, and I don't know if that's referring to the Khazarian thing or what.
What is the proven lie? What I've said like 1,000 things on this particular program.
No.
What is the so you know what? Go ahead.
Star of the Sea. You can either call in at 888-7753-773 or make your super chat clear. What did Bill say that was a proven lie? Let us know.
Anthony L. says, no one is a pure breed anymore. I agree.
Right.
Amazing. Thank you.
Right.
James H., 3 coffees. Why are some so-called supporters of Trump already second-guessing his decisions on the military situation with Iran? We elected him as our commander-in-chief. He has access to intelligence and real-time info. Rest of us don't. Speculating wildly or jumping to conclusions is insane. Why not have a wait and see? Let the great white hope do the job he was elected to do.
Well, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy. I'm still a supporter of Donald Trump. I support Donald Trump because the other side is absolutely, they're gone. But I'm going to say this, that does not preclude me from questioning some of the wisdom of what we're doing now. One of the things that Donald Trump said as he was running for office, campaigning, he was tired of us being involved in foreign wars. Well, we're first year in his office, we're involved in a foreign war. It just makes me question it. I didn't say, hey, I know that I got the inside scoop. I know that he's wrong on this, but I think, wow, what are we doing here? And I'll say this, that the gas prices and all of the prices across the board are going to be extremely high, and Trump is going to feel that in the election booth this fall.
And last one from Ronnie in Ohio. I have a somewhat silly question. Can we get Mr. Lockwood to say, suffering, succotash? Same for Uncle Jesse.
Suffering Succotash. I guess that's a good little comment. Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's something
It's a
that
cartoon. It's a cartoon.
Oh,
Yeah.
suffering.
I guess it would be.
Succotash.
I guess it would be the Putty Tat. Or, anyway, Tweety Bird cartoons. I guess. I
Thank
guess
you,
that's what
Ron,
it is.
from
Thank you.
Ohio. Thank you, Ron.
and thank you guys. That's all for Bill.
Amazing. Let me go to Mays out of Dayton, Ohio. Mays, you are on with Bill.
Hello, heathens.
Hey,
Bill,
man, how are you?
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we always talk about Israel. When did it start to exist?
When did what?
Israel becoming the play?
When did Israel come into play?
Yes, because there was no Israel. Was there before they put those
You're
people
right.
there? Okay,
You
so
want to
what
know
was,
when did Israel come into play?
You're correct. So Israel came into play in the 1890s when there were many people, such as James Balfour, who is in the turn of the century, who is the British foreign minister, was trained by Jewish rabbis at Oxford University, and he believed that we need to have a state for the Jews. Theodore Herzl, who is an atheistic Jew, wrote a pamphlet said we need a home for all the Jews in Russia and other places. We need a home for them. And he suggested Bolivia or even in Palestine. But they had no home. But the British got involved under the leadership of James Balfour at the Balfour Declaration. And so they made a British mandate. The British came in there, took it over, and they made it a home for the Jews under the British mandate. Then the United Nations took over in 1948, created a state.
so what was the Palestinians before?
Mays, hold on. Can you hold Mays?
Does that make sense?
Did that make sense, Mays?
When we get finished, it might make some.
Oh, but for right now, that didn't make sense?
Yes, it's making sense of what he's saying at the moment.
All right, hold on. Bill, hold on. Let me take a quick break. Back
Okay.
in a moment.
Okay.
I want to go quickly back to Mays out of Dayton, Ohio. So, Mays, you said you understood the first half of your question, right?
Yes.
Okay, go
So now
ahead.
get into them being put on the Palestinian property. Were the Palestinians Jews before they put those people over there? Lockwood.
I didn't understand the question.
Repeat
Were the
you said-
Palestinians consider themselves Jews before they put those people on their property?
She's asking, before they put the Jews, according to Mays, the Jews on the Palestine property.
Israelis, I'm not talking about Jews. I'm saying were the Palestinians Jews before they put the Israelis?
Were
Oh,
they
okay.
Palestine Jews before they put
Okay.
the
Okay.
Israelis?
The people that lived there were Palestinians. That's correct. The British government and then later the United Nations, supported by the
I'm not
United
talking about-
States.
I'm saying were they Jews or what were they?
No, they're not
Before
Jews. They were Palestinians.
Palestinians.
That's
So
right.
if they were Palestinians, how did they become Jews if it was a Palestinian land? So where did the Jewish part come from?
They didn't become Jews. They pushed the Palestinians out and put Jews
Yes,
in.
and just like they did doing now, they're pushing the Palestinians out, and then they're not going to be there anymore. They're going to take it out, and it won't be in the Bible. Just like the Bible, if you have one before they were put there, and in the Bible after they were put there, you don't see anything in the Bible today, but when they were put there, do you? Can you find it in the Bible?
That they were put there today. No, what's
When?
going on what's going
In your
on today
Bible,
has
in your New Testament, can you find it in there?
nothing in the Bible about Jews today in Israel.
What I'm trying to say is the Bible before Israel was put on that land in Palestine. Palestine, it says, will always be Palestine. So they're going to change the name after they push the people out. So the same, you keep talking about the New Testament, and in God's law, you said that no man changes. So who changed his laws? And who changed the Bible?
No one changed the Bible.
And Ethiopian has a Bible too, right? And
I
have
hope
you read
so.
the book of Enoch?
Mays, hold on 1 minute.
Yeah,
Bill,
okay,
she
we
want to
can-
know that does Ethiopian have a Bible?
Okay, so she's referring to the Apocrypha books such as the Book of Enoch and so forth. All of those have been rejected, and they've been known for centuries rejected because they're not apostolic in origin, and they are spurious documents.
Really? Oh, that's
That's
where you're
correct.
going. That's where you're going. So why was that taken out?
That's
Why
there was not.
Bibles burnt? Those are the burning Bibles that they used to talk about.
Okay. Let's. Okay.
Hold on, man. Slow down. We got so many calls for Bill.
I have something to do.
Number one.
Why,
Number one. Wait. Hold on. No one took anything out of the Bible. They never were included in the Bible because they were not recognized as inspired material from the apostles. So they're never included.
Why?
So no one took them out.
Why?
Because they were not inspired.
Well, why do people know about them?
That's
They're
why.
not inspired to you. They might be inspired to somebody else. Maybe they'll explain some of the stuff that we're looking at. And
So
then when they went down to Egypt land, who was Pharaoh? Went down to Egypt land when Moses went down there and told them to let his people go. Who were those people?
So this is why you need to study history, Mays,
Dude,
and not just
you
talk
need
about.
to study history. And
Hold on, May. Hold on.
I studied the part that you took out.
May.
All right.
Let Bill respond. Hold on.
Go ahead.
All right. The Bible was already settled at the conclusion of the first century. They had the Bible. They knew the Bible. We know the scriptures. From the time of the early second century, we know what was in the Bible. The Ethiopian Bible, the Book of Enoch, that has nothing to do with the Bible, had nothing to do with God's Word. That's something that came up later. That has nothing to do with God's Word.
Well, isn't the Ethiopian Bible older than your Bible?
Is it the Ethiopian Bible what?
Isn't that Bible older than the one that you go by?
She said it's an Ethiopian Bible older than your Bible, the Christian Bible.
It depends upon what she's talking about. Her Ethiopian
Well, you don't
Bible.
understand now.
Well, what Bible are you talking about? What book are you
Ethiopian
talking
Bible
about?
come before your Bible come. You
Okay,
said somebody
okay.
needs to study and do
Give
stuff.
me-
I study what
give
you
me-
leave out and don't put want to be known and you erase it so it won't be there anymore.
All right, give me the date.
Study the things that you want to know about.
Man, I gotta go, man, because you can't. You won't even let Bill respond.
Okay.
He's trying to get in, and you just going on and on.
Been talking all morning, so he's not giving me any answers. He act
because
like he
you
don't got-
won't let him. Whenever he's about to speak, you're talking over him.
I'm listening.
Okay, what is the date of the Ethiopian Bible?
We're not talking. It's older than the one that you abiding by. 'Cause
Okay,
you know the one-
okay. So you don't know. Okay, you don't know.
I
Okay,
asked
so I
you-
want. Okay, you don't know. So I can't.
I
I can't
know,
answer
but
the
I'm
question.
asking you.
You don't know. You don't know what it
I'm
is.
asking you. I know, but I want you to tell me.
What
so
is the date, man?
No,
Be fair.
What's the date of it?
You're the
you
one
know-
that's the gospel.
Man, what's the date?
I don't have to give a date. Find out for yourself. I don't like to give people stuff. I like for them to look for
All
themselves.
right, man.
Okay.
Well, don't mention something if you're
Somebody
not
else
going to
telling
get a
me.
date.
The
She's
next time
tricky.
you feel like
She's
we'll come on,
tricky.
we
I
gonna
know. Oh, man.
and tell him to go and read through Deuteronomy. See where he finds
I know,
himself.
but I'm not gonna tell you.
I know. That's amazing. Man,
Yeah,
thank
you
you. I
know.
got to run. Thank you, man.
have a good one.
You too. 888-77 Jesse. Let me go to Brian out of L.A. Brian, you're on with Bill Lockwood. I mean, Louisiana,
Hello,
not L.A. My bad. Louisiana.
Hello, Jess. How you doing?
All is well, Brian. You're on with Bill.
Hey, Brian,
No,
how are
I
you?
got a question for Bill, and I got a question for you too. Last hour, y'all was discussing the Jews, right?
So what? Speak right into your
Y'all
phone.
was discussing the Jews in the Bible, right?
Yeah, yes.
And your response was, what do the blacks and the Jews have something to do with the Jews? Why do you, Jesse, always got to throw the blacks in there? We just talking about the Bible. We ain't talking about no black and white. We ain't talking about no Christianity. What they got to do against the blacks?
Oh,
Nah,
so
my
Brian is
question-
asking
my
me in
question
case
to
you
you
don't
again.
understand. In case, I don't know why we Mays and Brian. Brian want to know is why did I ask you? We were talking about the Jews. Why did I ask you if the blacks were the Jews?
Well,
I asked
just
because of people.
Yeah.
The blacks be trying to act like they're the Jews. They say they are.
yeah, just
Hold on,
because.
wait. Now, how do we act like we somebody? We act humanly. We act like a human. How do
You,
we
you don't
act
hear the
good?
blacks saying that they are the Jews.
In no such way. I don't even hear the whites saying they're the Jews.
But do you ever
wouldn't
hear
even
the
know.
blacks say that they're the?
Here we go again. Here we go again.
What do the blacks call
No.
themselves?
I listen to people.
The black Hebrew
I
Israelites.
listen
Oh
to
yeah.
people.
Well, you ever heard the blacks say that they're the blacks Israelite? Hebrew
I
Israelite.
listen to people.
Have you heard that, Brian?
No, I listen to people. What people say.
Brian,
Jesse,
Have you heard the blacks say that they're the black Israelite Jews?
I never heard the white say it either.
I asked, have you heard the blacks say it? I ain't asked you about the white.
I asked, did you hear the white say it?
Bye, Brian. I ain't got time to be playing today. Let me go to Jerry out of Virginia. Jerry, you are on with Bill Lockwood.
Hey,
All
Jerry.
right, hey, Bill. Got a question for you. If the Jews of today aren't the real Jews, then what was Hitler doing?
So that's exactly why Arthur Kiesler wrote his book, The 13th Tribe, in 1977 or so, to show that Hitler was absolutely wrong in killing the Jews because he said they're not the Jews of the Bible. Arthur Kiesler was a Zionist Jew himself, and he said we are traceable to Khazaria, and he was trying to defend the Jews of today against Hitler. That's why he wrote the book. But it backfired because many Jews today say, whoa, you're telling us that we are not Abrahamic Jews from the Jews of the Bible. So I suppose we would have to say, in direct answer to your question, that Hitler was mistaken on that as to who are the Jews, just as many people are today.
Well, all I got to say is you're a smooth anti-Semite.
Yeah, well, that's true. And just like Christopher Hitchens says, you know, you can't be an anti-Semite, you have to be an anti-Semi-Semite because, you know, the Jews are not the Jews of the Bible. And it was just, he said that jokingly, but that's correct. And it does, that, by the way, that does bring up, Jerry, a great issue, and that is the accusation of being anti-Semite. It takes on a different color at this particular point. It takes on a different idea, doesn't it? Because
it does for you, it doesn't for the real ones.
Well, it does for those who are not informed on the subject. It doesn't take on the different meaning. But for those who are informed...
Yeah, the real ones ain't going to be deceived.
That's right. Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Let me go to a first-time caller out of North Carolina, Johnson. Johnson, you're on with Bill Lockwood.
Hey, Mr. Bill Lockwood. I'm glad
Johnson.
to hear from you. And
yes, sir.
I see that there's all the people who are arguing with you 10 years ago are still on the phone, alive and well.
Yeah, that's right.
I just have a question. You know, what does it matter if these Jews have blood relation to them or not? Is it really a bad thing if we are supporting Israel? Because all these other people, it feels like we're supporting Chinese interests, Russian interests, and Iraqi interests when we're not wanting to combat evil.
Right. Johnson, you know what? That is a great question. What difference does it make? Number one, the Jews today have no connection to the land of Palestine. They have no deed to the land of Palestine from the Bible. And so that's number one, because it just blows out of the water all of the Zionists who are filling the Baptist pulpits, from the Robert Jeffresses of the world to the late Billy Grahams and other people, and John Hagee, who say that we need to do some armament over there and give them that land. They don't have a deed to the land. That's number one. So all of that is mistaken. Number two, regarding Israel being our friend, I believe they are our friends. I'm not saying they are not our friends, but I still refer back to the Constitution that we should be friends, but at the same time, we should not be in bed with anybody as far as giving them money and continuing to support them with American tax dollars. I don't believe that is correct. You may say at that time, in response, you may say, well, let's look what's going to happen to them if we don't. Well, how were they created? They were created by the United Nations. That's how it was done. They pushed the Palestinians out, put the Jews in there. And now Mike Huckabee says that they own all the land all the way to the Euphrates River. All right, so now what are we going to do now? Are we going to go all the way over there and take it to the Euphrates? That would be through Iraq, because Huckabee and the other Zionists say, hey, that belong to the Jews. He said that on Tucker Carlson. I don't know if you heard that or not, Johnson, but he said, yeah, they own all the land.
So
Yes.
the problem is that Israel wants to encroach on more land. They're not satisfied with the land that they have. They need to take more and more, and they drag us in to problems because they want more land.
I agree with that. And I think, why haven't American people talked about, for example, the capture of the USS Liberty in 1967, or the invasion in Lebanon by the Israelis? Why have we not talked about their aggression on those things? We just kind of whitewash that. And I think you've got a good point on that, Johnson.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for answering it. And now I understand what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnson, for calling in.
Yeah, thanks, Johnson. I appreciate it. Let me go to Washington State and talk to URIEL. URIEL, you are on with Bill Lockwood.
Hello. Good morning.
Hey.
Good morning, URIEL. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
Great. Hey, I've learned so much from you, hearing about American history and stuff. I have a question. What do you think about Genesis 13:15? It's the promise that God gave to Abraham, which I think is an important question, because if God breaks his promises or voids his promises, what's not to keep his son from voiding his promises? But it says in Genesis 13:15, God speaks to Abraham, says, "The land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever." So it doesn't say till the 1900s, and it doesn't say until Jesus. It just says forever. But if the offspring does not exist there, then I don't know, I guess God broke his promise. And the land that it's referring to is specified 3 verses later. So it says it's from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, or from the Red Sea to the Sinai Desert. So it gives a full enclosure of what the land that he sees is. And so if they're not ruling there forever, or if they stopped ruling there in the 1900s, what do you think? Does God void his promises? Will Jesus void his promise if they are related?
No, this is a great question, URIEL. So it is not that God voids his promises. It is a misunderstanding of the word forever. The word forever frequently in the Old Testament is not referring to an unconditional, time without end promise. For example, Genesis 17 and 13 was said to be that circumcision was to be a rite, that is R-I-T-E, that was to be kept by male Jews forever. But the New Testament shows that it is no longer valid in Christ. So it's not going to be forever in the sense of unending time. The same thing regarding the covenant and the Passover feast in Exodus chapter 12, verse 14 was said to be given forever. But in the New Testament, we are told the Passover feast has been replaced by Christ, and he is our Passover, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. Or also in Numbers chapter 25 and verse 13, we have the fact is that the priests were to be kept forever. They were to operate forever. But the New Testament in the book of Hebrews tells us that that priesthood system was only a type that was replaced by Christ, and it was not to be an unending time condition idea. Not only so, but think about this, URIEL. In Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 29, God said that, and by the way, the entire chapter 28 is all of the promises were conditional. They were conditional upon their obedience to God. And he said this, if you do not keep the law of God, and if you worship other gods, you will be driven out and you'll be oppressed forever. Forever. Deuteronomy 28, 29. So how is one forever running into another forever? That is, the word forever simply means continually, and that's how it's translated in many translations. So also we have, for example, in First Samuel chapter 2 and verse 30, you remember the story of Eli? Eli was said to be going to be a priest, and his house would be a priest forever. God sent a prophet to him because his sons Hophni and Phinehas were disobedient. He said, I promised you that you would and your house would be priest before me forever. But far be it from me That is to say, those who honor me will I honor, and those who forsake me will I forsake. Jeremiah 7, verses 6 and 7 tells us the same thing. Jeremiah understood it as simply a conditional promise that they would have to be fulfilling the conditions in order to keep the promise. So forever simply means continually, and we see that from whether it be the priesthood, Numbers 25:13, the Passover feast, Exodus 12:14, or also circumcision, Genesis 17, verse 13. The word forever is used in reference to all of those things, but the New Testament shows us they have been replaced, and it's not to be that we're keeping them today.
Thank you.
Okay.
I got to run, man, because of time here, and I want to get in at least one more call for Bill, but thank you.
Thank you, Ray, for calling.
The verse does not give conditions, though. It just gives a promise.
It does in Deuteronomy 28. It gives them continual
not to Abraham, not to Abraham and his offspring.
It does
give conditions to somebody that isn't born yet.
It does give the conditions of Abrahamic promise in Deuteronomy 28, Jeremiah 7.
Okay.
Jeremiah said this
Deuteronomy
is what it is.
also says do not add more commands. So what gives Jesus the right to add more commands? Deuteronomy 4:2, you will not add more commands. And yet you have this whole New Testament. It's all a whole new set of books.
Well,
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to respond quickly with that, Bill?
Sure. You know, all right, the Old Testament tells us specifically that it was a temporary system, and it was a temporary system to bring us to Jesus Christ. That is exactly what the New Testament system is about. So Jesus said, I came to fulfill the law and the prophets. The law, he came to fulfill the law. It was a temporary system. That's Matthew 5:17. Go ahead, Jesse.
HARRIET, out of Massachusetts, you're on with Bill, and we're like totally almost out of time.
Hello?
Yeah, HARRIET.
Hello? Yes, Bill, I'd like to know, thank you for being so honest, and may the Father protect you.
Ask your question really fast. Ask your question.
Okay, I would like to know about the name Yahweh. Don't they, practice and worship the God Yahweh, which is completely different than Jesus the Christ? And I also would like to know, they said that in Exodus 34:14, where it says that the name his name is jealousy. So is God's name jealous? Yahweh, Yahuwah. I mean, all these different names.
Hold on, Harry. Oh, yes, Bill.
I was just trying to go.
Yeah, that's right. I appreciate that. Well, I'll try to go quickly also. So Yahweh is WHYH, and we don't know the vowels.
Right.
So that is translated in the ASV and the King James as Jehovah. It's simply the name of God, but today's scholars don't like to use Jehovah. They like to use Yahweh. So they're going back. They're saying we're going back to the Jewish way of saying it, but I think that's illegitimate to do it that way. That is not necessary to follow.
Thank you, Harry. I appreciate it. Bill, your website.
So it's Bible Studies with Bill Lockwood, as well as. Let's see. What was the other? Bible Studies with
KO
and then
and
Patriotic Pulpit. Patriotic Pulpit. So, and then we have a Ko-fi account also.
ko-fi.com/patriotic pulpit to support.
Yeah.
Right. Bill, thank you. I'm totally out of time. I appreciate it. They worked you today, buddy.
Oh, that's okay. That's all great. That's great.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. Thank you so much, Jesse. Appreciate you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.